One of the many things that 2020 has brought us is possibly one of the last times we will ever see such clear-cut consequences from having minimum wage. In California right now, there is a bill that is targeted after the gig economy, the Ubers of the world, the Lyfts of the world, who are allowing people to use their cars as taxis and drive people around. They get to use their platform to promote their service, and this platform takes a fee, and the people that are driving their cars as taxis get to work whenever they want. Then they get to drive wherever they want to pick up people. And California wanted to stop that. And so they put into a law that in effect is minimum wage. And we're going to see the devastating effects of this. And this is so great. This is federalism at its best, that we can look and see what a state is doing and how they're ruining the economy. And there's so much great stuff here we're going to get into today. Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the podcast on how to make you successful. My name is Matt Williams. Thank you for listening to the show. Become a Fight Laugh Feast member. Go over to flfnetwork.com, put an HTBT in the memo field. You get that mug, you'll get a shirt, get tons of great benefits, and most importantly, you'll be supporting us to proclaim the Lordship of Jesus in every area of life. You can also get $100 off the conference that's coming up. Don't miss it, Nashville, Tennessee, October 1st through the 3rd. I look forward to seeing you guys there. All right, so this is what's happening right now. Uber and Lyft have been sparring with their home state, California, since 2019 over AB5. That requires companies to treat gig economy workers core to their business as employees, not individual contractors. Employee status makes workers eligible for benefits like minimum wage, overtime pay, and unemployment insurance. In June, the California AG Javier Becerra, I think is how you say it, a preliminary injunction to force Uber and Lyft to comply with AB5. So, like this says, this law is basically taking these subcontractors where you are independent entities. You didn't work for Uber, you didn't work for Lyft, so Lyft and Uber didn't have to treat you like an employee. There was no minimum wage. If you wanted to pick up one person and drive them a mile, drop them off and make $5 and then end your night, and you work 10 minutes, great. Now they're saying, nope, you cannot make below the minimum wage of California, which is like $7.25, $9, something like that now in California. It's absurd. And so they wrote this law, AB5, which has crazy secondary and tertiary ramifications to other areas of the world too, besides or other industries besides this gig economy. But that's for another time. But so what we have here is people freely choosing to work as Uber drivers or Lyft drivers. No one has ever made an Uber driver drive Uber. No Lyft driver has ever been made to drive Lyft. They haven't been made to do this. It is on a voluntary basis. So whatever money they do make from this, it is obviously worthwhile to them, or they would not do it, because we are rational people. And if we don't feel like we are making what we could be making doing something else, or if we do feel like we could be making some more money doing something else, we would go do that thing if our main driver was money. But not all the time people are wanting to do work for the money. Sometimes people want flexibility. Sometimes people want to get to meet people. Sometimes people are just looking for something that they can do sitting down, driving, and not have to do strenuous work for whatever reasons. Maybe it's just a part-time job they do on the side. I was actually talking with somebody in Florida. He says he makes $300 a week, and that's his second job. So he has his full-time job. He works, has insurance, has all that stuff, so he's not missing out. And he is doing Uber on the side, he said $300 a week, which that is pretty good, working as a secondary part-time job that supports and just adds income. I mean, that's $1,200 a month. That's a pretty good job when it's flexible. You don't have to be on a shift like a server or anything else. So the California decided that wasn't good enough for these people. So they're making them have minimum wage, overtime, and unemployment insurance. And it's in court right now. They're fighting it. And this is the thing. This is the interesting thing is coming up there's a vote happening. Apparently there's a proposition in California where they can vote on this, where if they're going to make this stand or not. But they're going to pull out of California. Uber is not going to operate in California anymore, which means that the thousands of drivers that wanted to work for Uber, that was happy with Uber enough to do it over choosing to do other things. There's the opportunity cost, right? They had a choice to drive Uber because no one was forcing them to do it. And they chose to over doing something else, of getting another job, getting a server job, getting a part-time job, doing something else. They chose to do this. Now they're not going to have the option anymore because Uber is going to pull out. And they're saying they're going to pull out until the election comes in November, where there is a vote by the California people to determine if this law stands or not, or something to that effect. I haven't really looked into the proposition that they're voting on, but that is their stance. That is Uber's stance right now. If the judge and the junction holds up, where they have to abide by AB 5 before it goes into effect, or whatever, early, or whatever it is that they were fighting in court, then they're just going to pull out. And this is exactly what happens in every single case of minimum wage. If it's part-time workers that are actually workers and are not contractors, or in this case, a gig economy where it's somebody who's working at their leisure, at their will. I mean, I guess we're all working at our will, but the times that you had to work were at your will. See, their employment, their gig economy, the people that are driving, their lives are not improving from this. They're not making more money from this. They're not actually getting health care from this. They're not actually getting overtime pay for this. They're losing their jobs. Now go back to before minimum wage even existed for part-time workers. When part-time minimum wage laws, I guess it's full-time is too, I shouldn't differentiate between that. When minimum wage was implemented for part-time and full-time workers, the same effect happened. No, the companies didn't necessarily pull out of the state altogether, but they did take the jobs away. So they just didn't hire as many people, and they added more work onto the people that they did hire, even though they may have paid them more, but they made them do more work to get more value out of them, or they would have laid them off. And you see, we had in California this industry where anyone who wanted to work could come work for Uber because there was no minimum wage. There was no requirements by Uber. The more people that wanted to come and drive people and earn a fare, please come. Work as many hours as you want, drive as many people as you want, drive one person, drive once every week, once every month, do whatever you want. There was so much freedom. There was so much liberty in that. People could get a first-time job driving Uber. People could do it on the side like my friend that in Florida did. But now it's not going to be that way. They may never even have an opportunity to drive for Uber again in California. And this hurts all of those people who chose freely to use that income to help their families, to feed their kids, to save up for something, to do whatever they saw fit, because they were never forced to do it. And California government is coming in and saying no longer. And notice, it's not bettering the drivers. It's not bettering their lives. They're selling it that way. They're saying it's that, but it's not. They're removing another source of income for people, another way that people are not going to be able to make money for themselves and for their families. And the same thing was true with the part-time and full-time. When minimum wage was first introduced, the same thing happened. And every single time minimum wage increases, the same effect happens. It may not be at such a large scale as it when minimum wage was first implemented, but it's fractional. Every single time a little bit more goes up, the less people that can be supported in employment, the less jobs that are going to be available, the less entry-level jobs are going to be available, and it hurts every single person that was making a living this way. The government's mercy is cruel, as the Bible says that Marcus uses all the time. The mercy of the wicked is cruel, and it's taking people's jobs away. And on top of that, it's not just hurting the people that were making a living off of this. it will also hurt all the people that benefited from the service, who were customers, who were paying for this. You know, in California, you guys, you really take it for granted. And I know you take it for granted that you have Ubers everywhere, that you have Lyfts almost everywhere, because I was that person. I grew up in California. I'm an expert at California and the chaos from the California government. I would drive Uber all the time. It was great. I never drove a taxi before. Well, maybe once or twice, but I mean, I never was regularly doing that when I went to the airport for travel and when I got picked up, but I did Uber all the time, and it became just part of my life. I mean, whenever I needed to go somewhere I couldn't drive or didn't want to pay parking fees or whatever it was, I did my Uber. And then I went to Hawaii, and true story, there's this one part of the island. I lived on the main island of Oahu. It's not the biggest island, but it's the main island where Honolulu is. It's the most densely populated island. And there's this one side of the island, the wet side of the island, where it is almost impossible, one, to get cell service, and two, to get an Uber. I waited, I'm not even kidding, for 2 hours for an Uber to pick me up. It was a situation where I was kind of just stuck there and I needed to get a ride and I had no choice. I had nobody else to come get me and I didn't have a reception. So I was outside of a liquor store for 3 hours because it took me 2 hours to get the Uber driver or something like that. And then it took the Uber that picked me up 45 minutes to get to me on that side of the island. And then to go back to the airline, I left to the airport to get my flight. I almost missed my flight. And that would have been terrible because there was a red eye and I had to be there the next morning and there was no flights after that one coming off the island. And then in North Carolina too, I was in the mountains. And it wasn't that far from Asheville, North Carolina, and they didn't pick me up there either. And granted, that was recently with COVID, so there hasn't been that many drivers and whatnot. But I mean, we really take for granted that how available it was in California. But it's going to hurt all of them too, because you're not going to have that option anymore. All of those people that have grown accustomed to and enjoyed the cheap fares, the convenience of the app, it's gone now. And taxi drivers are going to be able to raise prices again, which I'm guessing it has something to do with the unions. Maybe it has something to do with the taxi drivers union that donate to the Democrats. Maybe this was the plan all along. I don't know. But I just know this, that whenever we talk about minimum wage, raising the minimum wage, just remember this, that minimum wage is driving Uber, no pun intended, out of California. It's destroying jobs. It's destroying a quality of life that people are used to this service form, this innovation form. It's under the guise of doing what's right. It's under the guise of justice. It's under the guise of bettering the poor man. But it's not helping them. They lose their jobs. And it's not helping the area around them too. It's not helping the state because now they're going to go back to raising prices on taxis and not having such a good service. It's a shame. And we're doing these kinds of things, not just with minimum wage, but in government intervention in many different areas throughout the whole country. And we're doing it under the guise of raising people's wages, giving them health care, giving them overtime. But it's not doing that, and it's hurting everyone. We're going to give them health care. We're going to give them dignity. And all these terms are used. These political terms are being used. And it undercuts the people that they're trying to help. The mercy of the wicked is cruel. And anytime anyone starts to argue about how the government's going to come save you, point to this story. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the Lord's Day. Enjoy your Sabbath. And we'll talk to you next week. God bless.